Shalom, everyone. We are approaching the wonderful, awesome holiday of Shavuos, the day that HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealed his presence to Am Yisrael and gave them the Aseres Hadibros, which are the foundation of the Torah, again, to correct a little bit of a misconception. Although obviously we call Shavuos the day that we got the Torah, we didn't get the whole Torah on Shavuos. Obviously Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Har Sinai for 40 days and got the Torah. But we consider it Matan Torah because, number one, this was the mass revelation of God's presence, and number two, in the Aseres Hadibros are in fact alluded all of the 613 mitzvos. In fact, the Ramban wrote a whole kuntris in which he shows how all of the 613 can be subheadings or subdivisions of the Aseres Hadibros. But be it as it may, Shavuos was at least the beginning of the process that culminated in Matan Torah, and it is a great day, a holy day, an awesome day, a day of tremendous Kedusha, and a day of tremendous Simcha. I've noted already more than once in previous talks that the idea of Sfiras HaOmer, which are counting the days from Pesach to Shavuos, is connected to the notion that Pesach and Shavuos are essentially one long holiday. Pesach is the holiday of freedom, but freedom is not only worthless, but even destructive, unless it is linked to accepting God's will in our lives. And therefore, as the Ramban writes, the period of Sfiras HaOmer is actually a long Chol HaMoed connecting the holiday of freedom with the holiday of Torah. I'd like to highlight today a little bit of a different comparison or contrast between Pesach and Shavuos and what it is exactly that we're going to be focusing on. And this is from Rav Nachman of Breslov, who was a great-grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, and he brings the following question in the name of the Baal Shem Tov himself. And we might call this the problem of diminishing returns in the spiritual world. That often, when a person is new to Torah and they first start keeping Shabbos or Kashrus or davening, there's a certain type of excitement, a certain lightness, a certain vividness in which every mitzvah is so wonderful and geschmack, and there's so much passion and there's so much enthusiasm. And then what happens is, as time goes on, we might lose that enthusiasm, we might lose that passion, and the mitzvos themselves do not seem to be as fascinating as they were when I started my journey. Why should there be diminishing returns? Now, you might give a very simple answer. It is human nature that the longer you do something, the less novel it is, and as a result, it simply becomes boring or habitual. Well, that might be true for a lot of things, but l'chora, it should not be true for mitzvos, because if every mitzvah brings me closer to God, then how can it be possible that the more mitzvos I do, the less close I am to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? That doesn't make sense. The more mitzvahs I do, the closer I should be to God. So the Baal Shem Tov answered this with a very fascinating mashal. Imagine you have a baby, and the baby is learning to walk. So initially, the baby's 18 months or whatever, the parents are holding the baby by his or her shoulders, and the baby takes a step, and then takes another step, and walking seems to be fun and easy. And then at some point, the parents feel that the baby is ready to walk on his own, so they let go. Now what immediately is going to happen is the baby is going to fall. Plop, 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 plop. Now I do want to digress for a moment. That is one of the great miracles of human nature is that no matter how many times the baby falls, the baby will pick himself up again and again and again. And this is an amazing thing, because that shows us that human beings are hardwired to never give up. I remember when my own son was learning how to crawl. This is even before he was walking. And crawling was so laborious. He was pulling his weight across the floor. He was grunting and moaning and straining. And I was thinking to myself, Why doesn't he just go back to his crib and he can play with his toys? What is making him move forward? What is making him go through so many contortions? And the answer is, God built into the human nature to grow and to accomplish and to never give up. And if later, as we grow older, we get discouraged, we give up, that is an acquired behavior. That is not the innate behavior of what God put into us. So in many, many ways, looking at a child learning to crawl and then learning to walk is very inspiring because it reminds us not to give up. Now that was a little digression, but to go back to the main mashal, the Baal Shem Tov says if the baby could verbalize his thoughts, his or her thoughts, the baby might think, why was it so easy a few moments ago to walk and now it's so difficult? Why is it getting more difficult to walk? But the answer is, it was easier to walk because your parents were holding on to you. Now, your job is to internalize what your parents were showing you and make it your own accomplishment. Says the Baal Shem Tov, in spiritual growth, it is very much the same thing. Initially, when a person has not been living a life of mitzvot, and in some ways they are far from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu carries them, he lifts them up, he shows them the greatness of Shabbos, the beauty of tefillah, the magnificence of mitzvahs. And the person feels elevated and excited and passionate. But then, HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows, I've shown you what you're capable of becoming. Now I'm going to put you on the ground, and it's your job to become it. And just as Abba and Ima are still with the child, even when they let go, to be sure that the child progresses properly and doesn't get hurt, so of course Hashem is with us every step of the way. But on some level, he lets go a little bit, so we can internalize the gifts that he gave us. So says the Baal Shem Tov, and Reb Nachman elaborates on this, counterintuitively, when a person encounters difficulties in Avodas Hashem, when a person feels they are regressing, when a person feels they no longer have the passion and geschmack that they once had, perhaps it is God's vote of confidence that he lets go a little bit so we internalize that midah by ourselves, even though that means we will stumble and fall because we no longer have the artificial high of Hashem holding us up. A very similar thought is said by the Baal HaTanya, Rav Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the first Rebbe of Chabad, in which he explains that this is fundamentally the difference between Pesach and Shavuos. Pesach was a redemption that we really did not earn. It was a gift. It was a freebie because of God's love for us and God's covenant to the forefathers. Number one, we should have been in Mitzrayim 400 years. We were only taken out after 210 years. Number two, we had reached the 49th level of Tumah, of impurity. In fact, according to the Arizal, the reason why we didn't have time to let our dough rise and become chametz is not only because Paro was kicking us out, but in ways we don't even understand. Had we stayed another minute, the few moments that it takes for dough to become chametz, we would have hit the 50th level and we would have been irredeemable. And that's the 1/5 that survived. The 4/5 that died in the plague of darkness, in fact, had hit the 50th level. So it turns out that Pesach was something we were not really ready for. That's the meaning of chipazon. We left in a rush. We really didn't have time to make it our own. And Hashem showed us the Makos, and Hashem showed us Kriyas Yamsuf. And Chazal say what the maidservants saw on the Yamsuf, even the greatest of the prophets, Yecheskel, who saw the divine throne, the Kisei HaKavod, did not perceive. So Pesach represents God lifting us up beyond our capacity to show us the greatness of Hashem and the sweetness of Torah and the Geschmack. But then, after Hashem lifts us up, he puts us down on the ground and says, I've taken you to the highest mountain. I've shown you what you can become. I've shown you the treasures that are there. But now it's your job to become that person by making it your own. So unlike Pesach, which is chipazon, a sudden redemption, the process coming to Shavuos is an incremental, sequential series of step by step by step movements towards God, and indeed in which every single day has a unique spiritual exercise. Without being able to elaborate on all of this, we know that the 7 weeks of the Omer are connected to 7 divine emanations of energy: loving kindness and strength and beauty and eternity and glory and foundation and kingship. And each day within the week corresponds. So you have the 7 spheros in macro covering the week, and then within each of the 7 spheros in micro you have a particular day. There are beautiful books out there, both in Hebrew and in English, that take these spheros and they try to show the particular spiritual exercise that one should engage in as they prepare for Matan Torah. But whatever it is, the point is, unlike Pesach, which has a suddenness and a chipazon, or hurriedness, in which God lifts us up, Shavuos, we move ourselves towards Hashem. And in spiritual growth, sometimes it is 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and sometimes it is 1 step forward and 2 steps back. There are going to be defeats. There are going to be challenges. There are going to be moments where we don't always feel inspired, and there are going to be moments that we falter and we fail. But the most important point is, like the child learning to walk, don't give up. Keep on going. Remember, Hashem showed you on Pesach what you can become. But now the job is to become it. And the Baal HaTanya says, this is exactly why the counting of the Omer is the second day of Pesach, because it's a new level. The first day of Pesach is the redemption that is given you by God. On the second day, you start the process of making it your own. And he says, this is the meaning of the verse in Shir HaShirim, which is the beautiful allegory of God's relationship to the Jewish people and the passionate love that exists between God and us and God. And the woman that's Knesset Yisrael cries out to her beloved, which is the Almighty, Moshcheni acharecha, pull me after you. Narutza, so we will run. So says the Zohar HaKadosh, pull me after you is a reference to Pesach. We will run is a reference to Shavuos. Pesach, God pulled us. We were not ready. We were being dragged like a sack of potatoes. But through the process of the spiritual work of Sviras HaOmer and Shavuos, we kind of run with the Almighty. And there's a saying, I think it's a secular saying, but it makes sense. What you are is God's gift to you. But what you do with what you are is your gift back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Pesach is what God gave us. Shavuos, although God, of course, gave us the Torah, but the most important point is, what do we give back? How do we internalize the Torah of Hashem? You know, there's an old Hasidic word. People ask the question in the Birkot HaShachar, in the morning brachos of every day. So we recite the negative, blessed art you Hashem, who did not make me a non-Jew. Baruch Hashem, you did not make me a non-Jew. You gave me the privilege of being a Yid. So the question becomes, without getting into all of the halachic details, why do we accentuate the negative? Thank you for not making me a goy. Why don't I say, thank you for making me a Jew? Sh'asani Yisrael, asani Yehudi. Again, there are some opinions that actually have that, but we don't paskin that way. And the old Hasidic word is, God does not make you a Jew. You make yourself a Jew. Meaning, you thank God by not making me a guy. He gave me the potential to become a Jew. But whether I become a Jew depends on the life that I live and the choices that I make. I make myself a Jew by choosing to live by Hashem's Torah, to follow Hashem's Torah, to grow in my both Bein Adam Lamakom, between man and God, and equally so in my Bein Adam L'Chaveiro, my care and concern and my compassion for every Jew and really every human being in a way. And that's how I become a Jew. You're not just born a Jew. You're born with the potential to become a Yid, and now it's our job to become it. And that is the relationship of Pesach and Shavuos. Pesach is the initial enthusiasm of God holding me up and showing me what I can become. Sviras HaOmer and Shavuos is taking those beautiful ideas and translating them into the very, very difficult decisions of everyday life, in which there will sometimes be defeat and sometimes there will be discouragement. But keep going, and you will find the way to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because above all, HaKadosh Baruch Hu values our efforts to connect to Him. And he who tries to connect to Hashem will surely find that connection. Chag Sameach.
Shalom Avracha to all the incredible listeners of this fascinating collection of shiurim as we get ready to be makabel the Torah mechodesh yet again. Zaman Matan Torasenu, Haba Leinu L'Tova. What an opportune time to express an overwhelming sense of Akar Satov to an incredible Yeshivat Ohr Somayach, Ohr Somayach International, continuing their Avodas HaKodesh and Arbatzas HaTorah Lahagdil Torah Ladira. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol should send continued unbelievable Siyata Dishmaya, Hein Beruchnius, Hein Begashmius, to allow Ohr Somayach to continue their tremendous Avodas HaKodesh, Mechoyel L'Choyel, La'ela Ula'ela Ad B'Yeskol Tzedek and Viter Be'ezah Hashem Yisbarach. Allow me to start the shiur today with a intriguing question, fascinating question posed to Rav Chaim Kanevsky. It appears in a sefer called Shema Tfilosi and Daf Lamed Gimel. And the question that was presented to the Sarah Torah Rav Chaim Kanevsky Zechat Tzadik Livracha was that halacha l'maisa. It's based on the Gemara and Brachos Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis. It's Paskin and Shulchan Aruch and Ohr Chaim Siman Mem Zayin Hilchos Berachos HaTorah and Siv Zayin. And then if somebody gets up in the morning, lo and behold, they forgot to recite the Berachos HaTorah, don't worry about it. You went to Shacharis that morning, you said your Ava Rabba, different nuschos, Ashkenaz Sfard, you said your Ava Rabba, and you uttered it, you recited it, B'kavona, Halocha L'maisa Paskins the Mechaber, and Ohr Chaim Mem Zayin Zayin, based on Brachos Yud Aleph Amud Beis, Kfar Niftar B'Av Rabbi, you don't have to go back after davening and recite a Berachos HaTorah all over again. And once you said your Av Rabba and you said it b'mesinas, b'kavana, yes, as an Indian to learn right after the davening, but in the end of the day, Kfar Niftar B'Av Rabbi, you said that lengthy paragraph, you covered your bases, you don't have to go back and recite the Berachos HaTorah anew. So they asked Rav Chaim Kanevsky the following question. And we take a close look, if we turn the spotlight on the lengthy wording of Ava Rabba, we find that we present a supplication, we request from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, come from the Eibishter, that we want the Bino, Lahavidu, Lahaskil, Lishmo, Limor, Lamed, and Lishmor, Velasas. We have all these distinct requests. Supplications presented before HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hashem, please, can I have the understanding, can I have that ability to be Maven, Lahavin, or Lahaskil, and we elaborate all the varied requests we present to Hashem in the context of this Ava Rabba, Avtanu, Hashem Elokeinu, etc. So they asked Rav Chaim, I understand. Where is all that in my Berachos HaTorah? When I give it in the morning, also I'll pee based on the Gemara Brachos Yud Aleph Amud Beis. I say the bracha lasik b'divrei Torah because Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel told me that that's the correct bracha. I followed up with V'harav Hashem Elokeinu based on Rabbi Yochanan, Nachmal, yet again to the Gemara Brachas Yed Aleph, and then I close with Asher B'Chaban Mikol Omim, which is the opinion of Rav Hamnuna. Comes the Gemara Brachas Yed Aleph from Beis L'Maskona, the Milsa at the end of the day. Let's say them all, and that's precisely what we do. We say all the above brachas, but where's all that in my Berachas Torah? Where in the world do I encounter a lengthy bracha of the Bino, Lahavin Olaska, Lishmo, Limon Lamed, Lishmar Velasa, so the Kayim is called Divrei Tamatel, Tamatel Asecha. Where is all that? Chaim said, what do you mean? His answer was, we do have it all in mind. Where? In two succinct words. The Haravna. Hashem, please, can I taste the arevis, the sweetness of Torasenu HaKadosh? What a powerful, potent message. What do you sowed? Azokt, this Sarah Torah, Chaim Kanievsky comes to tell the world that if you wake up in the morning, and you recite Yevaharavna Hashem Elokeinu, and you think about those words, and you beseech from the Almighty above, Eibishter, please, Vaharavna, I want to taste the Arevis, the Masikas of the Torah, then you don't need to ask yet again for the Bino, Lahavin, Alaska, Lashua. Why? Because it's all there. Yes, we do present it in Avarabba. Abba Lamaisa, if you have in mind Vaharavna, Rabbi Yochanan told us, think about these words. You don't need to then present a detailed, specific request of Hashem, can I please have the understanding, it's all there. It's all encompassed therein, packaged ever so tightly in those two words, Hashem, please, I beseech you, I beg, I plead, can I taste the arevis, the sweetness of Torasenu HaKadosh, the greatest gift in the history of the world. That's Rav Chaim Kanievsky. And on the bottom, they cite in a footnote that Rameir Simcha from Devinsk, the renowned Yeshivat Ohr Somayach and the Rambam, he had a chavrusa at one period in his life, and anytime they got stuck in a difficult Gemara, on a difficult Taisus, and a difficult Rashba, what would Rameir Simcha do? He'd turn to his chavrusa and he'd say, take a Tehillim, Zog Tehillim, you'll say Kapilach Tehillim in that corner, I'll say Kapilach Tehillim here, and let's daven simultaneously for Avos HaTorah. So the Chavrusa said, Rebbe, why am I davening for Avos HaTorah, to love the Torah? Why don't I daven to get shot in the Taisus, to get shot in the Rashba, in the Rekiv Eger's Kasha? That's what I should be davening for. Explain Rameir Simcha, let me give you a parable. Imagine a mother, she just had her first child, a newly born infant, and she has to run out shopping. So what does she do? She knocks on the door of her neighbor and she requests, can you please watch my newborn son for a little bit? I'm going to run out 20-30 minutes and I'll be back soon. Can you please keep an eye on him? Says sure. Comes back 20-30 minutes later and the baby is crying hysterically. The mother takes the infant in her hands and instantly she assuages, she calms the baby down. The neighbor turns to the mother and says, I understand, I've been trying to calm your child down for the last 10 minutes. You take one look at your child and you caress your newborn infant, and you hold him close, and within 5-10 seconds, already now he's cool, calm, and collected. How'd you do it? Says it's very simple. I love my child. I love my child as an etzem chelek, part and parcel of my core essence, of my mahus, of my existential identity. My child is one with me, and I love my child unconditionally, immeasurably. When you love someone, you know instantly, automatically, instinctively, you know what the child's needs are. I pick up the child. I know, take it from yad right away, exactly what the necessities of the child are. That's what you achieve. Derech Ava, when you love something, you connect to it instantly. Nafshi kshura ben it's automatic. That is the love that we ought to have to the Torah. Zok the Mesha Chochma, when you're stuck on a difficult piece in Gemara, in learning in Rishonim and Achonim, whatever the difficulty might be, you know what the Tzana Shabbat, the commentary is? Daven for more Avos HaTorah. Because if you love the Torah, and you connect to the Torah on that level, you become mamish one-on-one with the Torah. The same way the Zohar HaKadosh tells us, Pashas Achrimos Ayin Gimel Man Aleph Kutsha Brucha V'Yisov V'Reisa Chadu. You want to be one-on-one with Hashem. You want to be one-on-one with the Torah. Avos Hashem, Avos HaTorah. We merge, we fuse, we all become Kaviyachol together with Hashem through His Torah Kadosha. And that is the love that we are capable of achieving. And thus, Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein writes in his Tivcha Yabiu, and Parshas Yisro, he cites in the name of Aaron Leib Steinman, the Bala Yelas HaShachar, one of the Gedolei Hador in our generation. And Rav Arleim Steinman was asked the question, why is it that so many yeshiva baruchim they're learning today, and they don't know, get a geschmack, they don't taste the arevus, the mesikas satira. What do we do? How do we inspire them? How do we uplift their spirits? How do we get them excited about Torah? Give them the lebedikkeit, the geschmack, the bren, the slavis. How do we do it? Rav Arleim says, you know what, before we talk about the steps to take, the first question you should ask all these yeshiva baruchim, and Mora Rabbi say, everybody in the world who's sitting and learning, how come we don't feel the geschmack? The very first question to pose to yourself is when you got up this morning and you recited your Birchas HaTorah and you said the words authored by Rabbi Yochanan, V'harav now Shem Elokeinu. Did you truly mean it? And did you say it umka deliba, from the very depths of your heart, the recesses of your heart? Did you say it like you meant it? Did you sincerely and honestly request from the Eibishter, from the Almighty Bav Hashem Yisparach, I love you, Torah. It's the greatest gift in the history of the world. Mishlei Chacham Ikolonim Shlomo tells us, Dalet Pasuk Beis, Ki lekach tov nasati lechem Torah siyata sovu. Hashem says, I'm giving you my most cherished, prized possession. The Gemara therefore writes in Brachos Tafayim and Aleph, the Mishnah Perkei Avos, the beginning of Perek Vav, Perek Kinyan Torah as well, Ein Tov Ela Torah. There is no greater good in the world. And then Torah Seinu HaKadosha Ki Lekach Tov. When you get up in the morning, ask Hashem, Haran Hashem, please, I beg of you, I plead, can you allow me to taste the unmatched, unparalleled sweetness of Torah Seinu HaKadosha? Please allow it to sink in, to penetrate. I want it to course through my veins. I want it to run into my bones, to seep into my neshama. I want it to go deep inside. I want to truly understand. I want to love your Torah like nothing more ever than all the gifts in the world, all the possessions. Hein Baruchnius, Hein Begashmius. And let me taste the sweetness. Zok Tomar Leib. I get up in the morning, recite the Haranah, say it with a smile, with a geschmack, with the lebedikkeit. That's the way to start to getting the arevus HaTorah. Because, my dear friends, moreover, Rabbi Sai, we have a famous Ohr Chaim HaKadosh, and perhaps it's yours as well, but it's my favorite Ohr Chaim, and his vast commentary on the Chumash, and that's the Ohr Chaim HaKadosh, Parshas Ki Savo, Per Chavo, Pasuk Yud Aleph. And the Torah Kedosha tells us, V'samachta b'chol hatov. Davar acher, let me offer another presentation, explains the Ohr Chaim HaKadosh. What's V'samachta b'chol hatov? Hashem's mandate is, I want you to be Mesach, I want you to rejoice, I want you to feel elated with all the Tov. What's the Tov? Ein Tov Torah. As since there's no greater tov, there's no greater good in the world than Torah Seinu HaKadosh and the Liman Torah. All right, it's the Heil Gorachayim. If human beings, if we would all truly taste the sweetness, the geschmack of Torah, and we would run after it, we would go meshuga after it, and we would understand. All the world, the molei kesef izov, it would be nechshav like klum. Why? Because the taiv of the Torah is kolel, hakolotovos shebaolam. Any good conceivable, imaginable to mankind, it's all there. It's all metaphysically encompassed in the precious, sacred, hallowed words of our Torah, in Tanakh, in the Mishnayos, in the Gemara, and the Musar, Machshava, Chasidus, Kabbalah, Halacha, you name it, it's all there, every single precious word. It's all the greatest sweetness and arevus in the world. Amela, that's what should be Zaycha. This Shavuos, this Mamnat Santasena Bola and Tova, and we know plenty of people, they're enjoying their cheesecake. And some people, they're enjoying the blintzes, some people, unfortunately, both, and they have to start that exercise regimen right after the Chag. So where does this whole cheesecake come from? And Milchik's, many different explanations, but we have Gedolei Rishonim. And the Kobo, their Chaschaim, and others, based on the Pasuk in Shir Hashirim, Perek Dalet Pasuk Yud Aleph, Devash V'cholav Tachas L'shonech. And the wisest of all men, the Chacham Kodem Shlomo tells us, and that the Torah should be metaphorically linked to Devash, to honey. Honey, sweet honey, and sweet milk under your tongue. Mamelo, I taste that cheesecake made out of cholav, a little bit of Devash, the blintzes. We want to highlight every single Shavuos, and really every day. Ha'ariv no? Shavuos especially, Eibishter, let me taste the sweetness of the Torah. You think the cheesecake's delicious, the blintzes are good? And you know what's greater, you know what's sweeter, you know what's more gratifying, more satisfying for every day of the year, for the rest of your life? The Mesikas and the Revis Torah. So allow me to share with you a beautiful insight. by the brother of Rabbi Tzalo Jolti, the Baal Mishnah Yavetz. This is Rabbi Aaron Yosef Jolti, who authored a fantastic work in the Rambam called Alumas Yosef. It was published back about 50 years ago, Shnas Tavshin Lamed Zayin. And in his one-page introduction, he writes as follows. He says, I have a question. David HaMelech, when he writes his monumental Tehillim, that the Arizal, the Zohar tells us, every word was penned, Al Pi Ruach HaKodesh, divine spirit imbued into David HaMelech's neshama when he authored that magnum opus called Sefer Tehillim. And what does he tell us in Tehillim chapter 19? And Pasuk Yud Aleph, Yutes Yud Aleph, the Torah is Nechmadim Mizavim Mipazrav, Umesukim Mivrashin, it's sweeter than honey. It's even sweeter than the drippings of the honeycombs. Ask the Alumas Yosef, Rabbi Aaron Yosef Jolti. If the father of Shlomo, David HaMelech, already described the Torah, the sweetness of the Torah is that it's mesukim idvashadov sufim. What exactly is the son now Shlomo in his Shir Shirim that he authored, Parak Dalet Pasuk Yud Aleph? What's he adding when he writes Tavash v'chalav tachas l'shonech? Explains the Alumas Yosef Givaldik. He says David HaMelech is describing a scenario wherein somebody's sitting and learning. He's Yoshev Velomed Beino Levein Atzmo. And when he's learning Torah, he should to taste the sweetness. There's no greater kishmak and sweetness in the entire world. As Shlomo was describing the master orator that he was, and when you now open up your mouth and you move the tongue, and you now teach someone else, and you give over, you transmit as part and parcel of the Messiah of our hallowed tradition, you're now teaching and giving over Torah to your children, your Talmidim, the next generation, give over the same Geshmak. My Tati, the Abba David HaMelech was describing, when you're sitting and learning, yes, it's Geshmak, you love the learning. If you love it and you enjoy it, then my dear friends, give it over to the next generation. Give over that sweetness, the geshmak, to your children. Your grandchildren, give it over to your friends, your acquaintances. Go out and teach it to the world. Teach it to every member of Klal Yisrael to whom you can convey the precious teachings of the sweetest gift in the history of the world. David, you bet. When you're sitting and learning one and one, taste that geshmak. And now Ed Shlomo the son give it over to the next generation and transmit that same sweetness. Show them, teach them, convey to them there's no greater sweetness in the world than the Torah. And that's why we know the Eglei Tal, famously, the second Shomer in his introduction to his Eglei Tal, Lamates Malachas, the Shlo already writes in Mesech Shavuos, and the Eretz Hatzvi and Shavuos, Chelik Aleph, the end of Simon Tzani Beis brings a raya, Noah Kitzon Yosef, Simon Chafal of Klichenda, Parshas Hazino. There's so much great Torah about what? And that there's no greater gift than when you learn L'Shem Shamayim. You know what's included in L'Shem Shamayim? Hashem, I want to taste the sweetness. I want to enjoy it. When you enjoy it, that doesn't diminish from L'Shem Shamayim Fakir. On the contrary, when you enjoy it, that's precisely the Kavanah Sabori. You know what Hashem wants? He wants you to enjoy the sweetness of Torah more than any other sweetness in the world. That's Mosok, that's Arevus. If we would taste it, we would realize all the cheesecake in the world, all that blueberry cheese, that cherry cheese, the blintzes, Geshmak Rabbi say peanuts, priorities. There's nothing sweeter. More sweet than any Tesla self-driving SUV, more sweet than any gift you can buy yourself, is the greatest gift that the Eibishter gave us, that we reenact and re-experience and relive every single Shavuos. Hashem, let me have the Torah again. Let me taste it, but let me taste it sweeter than ever before. Let me taste the Masikas, the Revis Tovat Torah, as the Orach Chaim HaKadosh told us, if we would understand and appreciate the sweetness, nothing else in the world would matter. So once we're Zeicha to taste the sweetness, don't stop there. Follow the lead of an Ohr Somayach. Follow the lead and draw other people in. Share the sweetness, share the geshmak. Give it to them with the bread, with the slavas. Teach them that they can have all the delights, all the culinary delights imaginable. But there's nothing sweeter, nothing more satisfying, nothing more gratifying, nothing more geshmak, no better way to get up in the morning and go to sleep at night than knowing every moment of the day Hashem Yisbarach loves us more than we could ever imagine and gave us Am Segulo de Am Nivchar, the greatest gift, his most cherished beloved gift, the gift of the Torah, and together with it, the sweetness of the Torah. This Shavuos, let us be Zoicha to be Mespala like never before, that we should taste and thereby acquire a sweetness of love of Torah. It's the greatest Shashua, it's the greatest Madrego. We can learn the Shem Shamayim. Hashem, I love you, I love your Torah. Let me taste it, let me live it, let me love it like never before. Yiratzah This should be the sweetest Yontif of Shavuos ever. And we should be zeicher to join Ohr Somayach with Mashiach Tzidkenu, learning Torah every second of every day. Meira v'yameinu, amen v'yamein. Have an awesome, meaningful, impactful, and delicious Torah Dika Yontif up there.
Hi, this is Peretz Baruch Eichler, a proud alumnus of Ohr Somayach. Now what you just watched is one of the many programs that Ohr Somayach provides, leaving its impact on hundreds of thousands with so many more waiting to be reached. Ohr Somayach's central campus in Jerusalem has over 300 students presently learning there. And now you can be a vital part of spreading that bounty of knowledge worldwide by logging on to donate.ohr.edu. We can step up to the plate at this pivotal moment of Ohr Somayach's growth and bring the next generation of Jews home.